It's not just storytelling, it's living aloha. PBS Hawaiʻi, home is here.
Local broadcasts of Insights on PBS Hawaiʻi are made possible by the support of viewers like you. Mahalo, and by Carl Smith Ball, providing legal services throughout Hawaii and the Pacific since 1857, making a positive difference in the communities where we live and work. With no incumbent running for State House District 20, the seat is up for grabs. 5 candidates are facing off in a crowded Democratic primary for the position, which covers the Honolulu communities of Kāhala, Kaimukī, and Kapahulu. Each candidate is trying to make it to the general election. Tonight's live broadcast and live stream of Insights on PBS Hawaiʻi start now.
Aloha and welcome to Insights on PBS Hawaiʻi. I'm Lauren Day. With Bert Kobayashi retiring this year and the end of his term, the primary race for House District 20 is set up to be a competitive one. The Democratic side of the ballot features 5 candidates looking to become first-time state lawmakers. The district includes Kāhala, Kaimukī, Kapahulu, Waialae, and Diamond Head. So what are the main issues facing District 20, and what are the candidates' plans to address them? On tonight's show, we will hear from each of those 5 candidates as they make their cases to represent District 20 in the State House. And we look forward to your participation in tonight's show. As a reminder, you can email or call in your questions, and you will find a live stream of this program at pbshawaii.org and on the PBS Hawaiʻi YouTube page. Now to our guests in studio. George Hooker is a resident of Kaimukī. He came to Hawaii to attend the University of Hawaii at Manoa, where he played football. He has served in the Hawaii National Guard. He is currently pursuing a master's degree in mental health counseling from Chaminade University. John Choi has lived in Kapahulu for the past 22 years. He immigrated to Hawaii with his family from Korea in 1972 when he was 4 years old. He has over 2 decades experience as a trial lawyer and started his legal career as a deputy attorney general. He and his wife Michelle have 2 daughters. Kevan Wong was born and raised in the communities of Diamond Head and Kaimukī. He graduated from the William S. Richardson School of Law at UH Manoa. He has worked for Rep. Scott Nishimoto in the State House and since 2019 has worked for the City and County of Honolulu as the city's liaison to the state. James Logue is a combat veteran in the U.S. Army. He holds a master's degree in public administration from Hawaii Pacific University. He is currently a special investigator for the state of Hawaii. He has previously worked as a SNAP benefits caseworker, legal assistant, and legislative aide in the State House. And Tina Nakata Grandinetti is a Kapahulu resident and a postdoctorate fellow on the Housing and Land Justice team at Policy Link, a national research and action institute dedicated to advancing economic equity. She has a PhD in urban studies. She is a founding member of Oahu Water Protectors. First question for all 5 of you. I want to hear from everyone. This is a hot topic, I think, for all of us who live in Hawaii. Cost of living is very high. George, I want to start with you and then we'll go around the table. What do you think state lawmakers can do to make Hawaii more affordable?
Yeah, that's a very good question. When I look at affordability, I think it affects the younger generation the most, especially in our district. We have, going door to door, all these families are worried about, oh, how are my kids, millennials, and younger, how are they going to afford a home? How are they going to afford Hawaii? And it touches my heart. And what I look at is what we did this past year with House Bill 2404. And what that did was the biggest tax break in the last 50 years, and generational tax break. And I think we should take that one step forward to fight for our next generation. We should completely look at the tax code and make shifts in the tax code by completely taking out the income tax. And then 20% of our housing here in Hawaii is by non-residents, and it's also by vacation homes. So what we do is we raise that property tax for those people that aren't as invested in Hawaii. don't love Hawaii. It's just kind of a side for them. We want the people that are invested in Hawaii to reap the benefits of being here.
Kevan, maybe we'll just go around the panel. Kevan, your thoughts on how do we make it more affordable to live here?
Well, I think George mentioned a big tax cut. That's a good start. One of the things that I find very difficult is competing with outside interests. We've created a system where our residents have lower pay and less benefits than a lot of other places. I think a big part of it is letting our residents compete with the higher paying jobs and the lower cost of living from outside interests that are coming in and taking up the spaces that should be for our residents. That should be a bigger part of our focus, I think. And like I said, the tax cut is a good start, but there's a lot of different things that we can look at to focus our attention on bringing the cost down for necessities like food and medicine. So those are the big things that I think we should focus on.
Yeah, it's not only is it housing, but there's inflation, food, groceries, restaurants, everything more expensive. Tina, what would you like to add?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, housing is, I think, the biggest cost that most families face. A huge percentage of local families are housing cost burdened, and so I think we can make policy changes to curb outside investment and speculation in our housing market. We've created a housing market that is almost entirely disconnected from the local economy. We can preserve existing affordable housing and do better at protecting the 48% of local families who rent. The other cost is groceries. That's getting harder and harder every single month. I hear it at the doors all the time. And I think that takes significant investments in our local food system. If we really want to start seeing transformative changes in the amount of money that we pay for food, we need to stop importing 80 to 90% of it. And that means investing in a sustainable, regenerative local agricultural system. And then on the issue of tax breaks, I really support lowering tax burdens for working families. The most recent income tax breaks, though, I think reinforce our regressive tax system. And what that means is the top 1% of earners in Hawaii see more benefits from that bill than the bottom 20%. Almost like the vast majority of those benefits are going to be felt by people who are already doing pretty well and not struggling. So the top 1% of earners would see an average of $6,000 on their tax break, while the bottom 20% would see roughly $335. So as we make those choices and try to put more money back in the hands of working people, I think we need to be conscious of, how we make those decisions. Yeah.
John, what would you like to say on the topic?
I believe that the government should and can spend emergency monies to give families now $500 to $1,000 for the most needy families. There is a crisis going on. People can't afford to eat right now. 60% of households are struggling with just meeting their regular bills. And that's the first legislation I would like to introduce, is relief measure, emergency relief measure. We have the money, and we can make long-term bonds, and we can look at increasing the visitors tax, and to pair that with affordable housing by building more houses on the properties that we already have. If we look at the government housing, it's 2 to 3 stories. We have now the ability to make 30-story, 40-story homes, and we should redevelop all those government-owned housing projects and make them beautiful and give people pride in them and give them the ability to pass it on to their children, not as a fee simple, but as the first right of refusal before it goes to someone else. And I think that first right of refusal can also play into general transactions in real estate, where Hawaii residents get first dibs on every single piece of property before someone who does not live here can bid on that.
James, for you, I'm sure, for all of you, but as you're campaigning, I'm sure this is something that gets brought up a lot.
It is. The cost of living is a big issue for everyone. And kind of like Kevan was saying, the wages aren't really comparable to what the mainland is being paid. I know from working at the SNAP offices, there are plenty of people who are working 2 and 3 jobs, but you know, they're working like 19 or less hours at each job, and they don't have medical coverage. And some of them sadly don't qualify because they're just over the monthly gross amount, so they don't qualify for benefits. I think that needs to be looked at as to how we can help those businesses give those people more hours, which kind of falls into the tax code that George was saying. I think we need to look at the tax code, and we need to look at how we're taxing businesses and try to see how we can come to a compromise where we're raising the minimum wage, but we're not helping the businesses, so they're taking on another cost, and now they have to cut jobs, they have to cut positions, and you know, it's great you think you're getting paid more, but in reality, in the long run, you're going to lose your job. So I think the legislature needs to work with businesses and see what kind of modifications to the taxes that we can put in place for the people.
Yeah, affordable housing, cost of living, you know, it's something that affects everyone across the state. But I want to get a little bit more specific, and I'll let each of you jump in, no particular order. Besides affordable housing, what are some specific issues facing your area and your communities?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that we've been hearing about is public safety. You know, I grew up in the area, and I would routinely ride my bike from my house on 12th Avenue to my grandparents on 22nd. That's something that I think a lot of people are afraid to let their kids do now. I was doing that when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, and just today I was talking to somebody who said they didn't want their kids out by themselves. You know, they're sitting home inside playing video games or doing something else because they don't feel safe letting them go to the park by themselves or anything like that. I think that's something that we can really focus on, and whether that's the homeless people coming in out of Waikiki and just taking up the space so people don't feel safe. It's something that is a big issue in our area.
Do you have any ideas on how to address that?
Well, so for me, you know, homelessness is a big issue, and it's got a whole bunch of different parts to it. You know, we start with mental health issues and rehabilitative services. We need to make those more available and get the access to those in, you know, make it easier. The other thing is there's a lot of people that are trying, they just can't make it. One of the things that I really like is the city's core program, the Crisis Outreach Response and Engagement Program. They have a bunch of providers that kind of go around, make sure that people can get the help that they need. The last part of it, unfortunately, is the people that don't really want to participate in society. They don't want to follow the rules. I think right now that we've created a system where our courts are underfunded, our jails are underfunded, and what that leads to is a whole bunch of people getting a slap on the wrist and getting put back out on the streets.
Is that something, safety, crime, that you all are hearing from people in your communities, or are there other issues that are pressing as well?
Yeah, I would say the public safety is a big one. And for me, I have an 11-month-old son. So, you know, just thinking about him not being able to go play outside safely by himself or with his friends is bothersome. It's an issue, like Kevin was saying, with the courts, and a lot of the departments are understaffed. Even if we look at HPD, they're understaffed. But I think most importantly, we need to look at the state laws. As a special investigator, I know that it's very hard to pursue prosecution. You could have a mountain of evidence, but it has to be very specifically laid out and collected. And I think the laws lean a little bit too in favor of the criminals. So I think we need to go and look at those laws and amend them to put some more balance back into the system. Even if you talk to the prosecutor's office or the AG's office, they'll tell you the same thing. A lot of these cases don't go to prosecution. They're back on the streets because their hands are tied. And that has to change, or we're not going to change the public safety aspect in the community at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, the public safety issue has come up a lot, and a concern that people don't feel safe in their homes and their neighborhoods. I would take a slightly different approach, or maybe prioritize things a little differently, in that I think it's important to note that violent crimes in Hawaii remain, like, in comparison, very, very low, and it's property crimes that we're seeing an increase of. And property crimes also make people feel extremely unsafe in their homes. You know, that's not to trivialize that, but to say that property crimes reflect poverty and desperation. Homelessness reflects poverty. And we have, I think, not made the collective investments that we need to in terms of taking care of people. For the issue of homelessness, in our district, we have, an encampment at Diamond Head, where we have some of the harder to house chronically homeless. But in order to really address that issue in the long term, it takes more than policing. It takes serious investments in comprehensive and routine, sustained outreach and relationship building, so that you can connect people with the services that they need.
Mm-hmm. George and John, we will get to your top priority issues, but while she's on the topic of that, we did have one of our viewers write in, Mike Pololo, who asked all of you to address the homeless living on Diamond Head Crater. So since Tina jumped in on that, anyone else want to add on any ideas on how to address that situation?
Well, so one of the big things is, so that falls under the jurisdiction of DLNR. I know through the many neighborhood boards that I've gone to over the last few months, it's been a big topic. I've noticed that they've started to kind of clear out the bush area that's there, that they've kind of been hiding behind in the last couple weeks. So I think that's a good start. But another thing, going back to what I was saying before, we need some enforcement on things. Again, a lot of times they go up there, it's clearly trespassing. You know, a lot of times they're setting fires to cook their meals. The fire trucks have been called multiple times, especially in the last few months. And I think that's something that a lot of people are very worried about after Maui. It makes people feel really unsafe to see the possibility that all of Diamond Head, Kapahulu might go up. It's a lot of older houses, single wall things that are dried out and could burn very quickly. So I think we start with working with DLNR to maintain that property and clear it out on a regular basis.
John, you looked like you had a thought on that.
It ties in perfectly with what my number one concern I've been hearing is homelessness. And I propose a permitting system where you have to get a permit like camping to be homeless, and it would be free, and it would be paired with a free health checkup, and that would help. It's just a human thing to do, but also it addresses some of the financial burdens that the homeless place on taxpayers, because that is the biggest cost, is when they have a serious illness and then they go to the ER and they have to have treatment for a very serious illness. And so we have a permit system that's free. Every 90 days they have to get this permit, pair it with a health checkup, and then put them in a database where their family can find them easily, whether the family is here in Hawaii or back on the mainland, and we can help them reunify.
George, anything you wanted to add on that topic?
Yeah, our police are understaffed, and it's a huge concern. We have over 400 vacancies in the state, and we have, the city and county has worked on it, and this year actually we put together a proposal to $25,000 bonus for new cadets that make it through. And we've seen a 50% application of new cadets, and I see that as progress. I think the city and county and state are working together to try to solve some of these issues, and we see a concern in a place like Diamond Head where we need more police, and I would even propose on top of that is even making a social work division. As someone that's going into the counseling field, we need, some of these issues aren't police issues, they're more humanitarian issues. And, they need to work together as a team to handle this, because many times police aren't trained on issues like this.
Can I return to the topic of the encampment? I just want to say that I think a permitting system is really problematic for ethical reasons, but also because for my doctoral research, I spent a lot of time interviewing and learning from folks at the encampment in Kaka'ako and the one in Waianae, Pu'ohonua o Waianae. People, when they get swept, they lose their belongings, they lose their identification. So just as a matter of effectiveness, I don't understand how that would work, and I really would advocate for spending our resources on what we know does work. And the thing about the encampment at Diamond Head is a very unfortunate symptom of a big problem. But the one positive about an encampment is that despite the conditions and issues of bad behavior, there tends to be some element of community. And so while we do have to work with DLNR to maintain that site because it is a public health hazard and a fire hazard, we can also work with the people who live there to try to solve that problem on a long-term basis, because we all know from door knocking the neighborhoods around that encampment that when a sweep occurs, the people move into the neighborhoods because they have nowhere else to go. So we need to start offering long-term, long-lasting solutions. And for me, that also includes just the fact that our social services, our outreach workers are severely underfunded, overworked, and operating under huge caseloads. So I would really advocate for prioritizing that as kind of the main way that we tackle this.
All of these topics that have been discussed, you all are very passionate about. I want to go around the table before we get to a lot of the viewer questions that are coming in. If elected, what would be your top priority issue that you want to address? Let's go the opposite way. I know, George, we started with you last time, so James, I'll start with you, and then we'll just go around the table.
Yeah, my top priority that I would like to address is I would like to see, going back to the homeless issue, long-term care facilities or an expansion of the state hospital, because as we were all saying, if you sweep them, they move to another community or down the street and then they come back. And I don't think sweeps are effective. I think it's a short-term solution. The only way that we're going to reduce the homeless population is if we get them into long-term and permanent care homes, where they can live a life of dignity, they can get their medication. When I worked at the SNAP office, I had clients who would come in who were taking their medication, and they were a completely different person than when they were off their medication. And again, going back to the sweeps, they lose all their personal belongings. So if their medications are in their tent, or anything like that, they lose it because it's being picked up. They just go and they just pick it up. So in the end, I don't think we're going to reduce the homeless population, even if we hire more social workers or do a permitting system, because where are they going? The nonprofits can help only so much. They don't have long-term care capability. Queens Hospital, the other hospitals, they're overburdened in the emergency room by the homeless who are coming in for, whatever reason. I think it just comes down to we need to really focus on long-term care facilities to help reduce that, the homeless population.
John, for you?
Thank you. Progress is only made when we try new things. And I think that we must passed two critical bills that were on the legislature last year. One was to stop the pay-to-play, which right now companies that have contracts with the state cannot contribute to politicians. That's common sense. But their employees, families, and friends can. And in a system like that, it's like a soccer game where the players can't pay the refs, but their family and friends can. That game, we already know who's going to win it. And the people have been losing that game for a very long time in Hawaii. I would say, humbly, that my observation, the Democratic Party has lost touch with the people. And we should right that ship. So number one, stop the pay-to-play. Number two, clean elections. We need to have a system where government-funded elections is an option and may become permanent for all parties, because participants, because Right now, we're training candidates to raise as much as they can, spend as much as they can, and when they get elected, they're supposed to balance the budget. We should give everyone the same amount of money, be creative with it, be resourceful with it, and then when you step into office, you're going to be trained to do that.
And just as a reminder for our viewers, the question we're on is hearing from each of the candidates, if elected, what would be your top priority issue that you want to address? Tina, continue on with you.
For me, I would love to get on the housing committee. I currently work in housing policy at a National Policy Institute, and I dedicated my graduate studies 10 years to researching and learning from working people about Hawaii's housing crisis. And for me, our current policy discussion around housing is very limited to how we can build our way out of this crisis. And I think that leaves a big gap around other key policy approaches like curbing outside speculation and investment, carving out a pool of homes in our housing market that are accessible only for local people and that are permanently affordable, and then protecting low-income homeowners and the 48% of households who rent. Those are really important issues for me. And then on top of that, I think, and sort of related, is protecting our environment and creating a more resilient local ecosystem as we are facing climate change. I think that is related to the land use decisions that we've made and the approaches we've taken to development. But one of the things that I hear mostly from the younger people who come to the door and when I'm canvassing is when I ask them what they care about, they say, I care about water. I care about a livable planet. And I had one high schooler, I think she went to Kalani High School, living in Kaimukī, who came to the door and she was like, yeah, everyone says it's up to our generation to solve that, and I don't understand why. And so I take that responsibility really seriously and feel that as state representatives, we have a really important kuleana to play.
Kevan?
Well, so kind of on the same page as what James was saying, I think long-term care is really important. I want to change that though. For me, the long-term care issue is more with our kupuna. You know, personally, I live at home with my grandparents. They're in their 90s now, and they require a lot of care. My brother, my uncle, my cousin, we live there with them, and we take turns taking care of them. The rest of my family that also lives in the district comes over in the morning sometimes when we have to go to work, when we have to work late. Everybody takes a turn. I know we're really lucky because we have that system in place. A lot of people don't. You know, as I walked around, there were a number of houses where a caregiver was answering the door for the person that was living there. I'm glad that they were able to have somebody there, but a lot of people don't. That's a personal project that I really care about. You know, it's work that I've been trying to do for a long time. I've been on the board for the Hawaii Health Systems Corporation. I just resigned because of trying to get this new position, but I've been there for about 5 years, and one of the big reasons that I wanted to do that is because they help manage Leahi Hospital right in the district. And I look at that building and see how it's unusable in about half of it. So we've taken some good steps at the city to rehabilitate it. We've partnered with some people to get more usable beds. That's been more focused on homeless for now. But I remember a time when you know, I was at Kaimukī Christian School, and we would walk over there and we would read stories and we would play games with the residents. I don't see that anymore. And so I'd like to see a big push for that kind of service, especially in our district.
It's really interesting hearing, you know, similar topics for a lot of you that are very important, but everyone has a different take on how to address it. George, what would be your top priority?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, I mentioned the tax code earlier, and I kind of want to build on something that's very similar to that. You know, when we start looking at state jobs in this state, I talked to some of the young people and even some of the people that I work down at the state capitol with, and they have trouble finding state jobs. And what I found out working for the Senate Ways and Means is 1/4 of our state jobs are vacant. And what that means is we have all these jobs. A lot of them are clerical jobs, entry-level jobs, and people can't get through the door. A third of our jobs comes from the DHERD, Department of Human Resources, and a third of their jobs they can't even fill themselves. So we have these barriers of people to even get a job. And when I was working for the senators, they used to always say, okay, let's look at the vacancies. Let's look at the vacancies. So these state departments would come in, the agriculture, DOTAX, all these state departments, and they aren't filling these positions because they can't get through the Department of Human Services. And you know, I had other young people just frustrated about this. And I think what we have to do is we have to do more 89-day hires. Give people a chance. Let them through. We have to support our young local talent here in Hawaii. And what you do with the 89-day hires, it's like a trial period. Okay, you did a good job. We're going to hire you full-time for the state. And it works hand in hand. Jobs, tax, all these things come together, and then it makes it affordable for people who live in Hawaii.
I want to get to our viewer questions because, as you can see, I have a lot of orange papers on my table here. I'm not sure if everyone's going to have a chance to chime in on each question, but what I'll do is I will read the question from our viewer, and then if it speaks to you, if you want to take it, feel free to jump in and answer it. So this first one, one of our viewers watching PBS Insights emailed in. This viewer is asking, a new state law allows neighborhoods to be built more densely. District 20 is already pretty packed with limited street parking. What's your take on this new law, and how will you help address any complaints that might arise from the change?
Monster homes. When I walk around and hear the complaints about monster homes, I ask, what is it about the monster homes that that bothers you? And most of the time, it's the parking. The parking that is taken up by the monster homes. So we have a house that might be 2 stories and has 10 rooms for rent, and each of those rooms has a car attached to it. So we have a single family zoning with meant for like 2 to 3 cars. Now we have 10 cars. And that just is very irritating for the neighborhood, and you lose that flavor of, I live on George Street in Kapahulu, and there are the neighbors that have been there for generations. And across the street we have the Hamanos, next to them is the Resants, and they've been there for generations. The Ueharas, the Coffins, the Costas. There's just so much rich love and friendship in Kapahulu, Kaimukī, Kāhala, where people have spent generations, and that monster homes takes away from that, because the people that usually live in the rooms are transient or students, and which is okay because everybody needs housing, but it seems to be the parking is the #1 issue.
Anyone else want to chime in? I know Kaimukī is hard to get parking, just anecdotally saying that.
I was actually, the last time I was on this show was speaking directly to those, that bill that moved through the legislature to allow, its aim was to densify our neighborhoods by allowing up to, or a minimum of 2 ADUs on lots that had allowable infrastructure, you know. And I think, while I am not opposed to the idea of gently densifying our neighborhoods, particularly near the urban core, I think that that bill in particular was a bit of a blanket solution to a problem that is place-based and that should be made not just at the county level, but really at the neighborhood level. And so one of the best things about our district, like John said, is that it has a rich history, families living there for generations. It still retains some of that character. You can see homes that are, 100 years old right in the urban core. And that bill, in my opinion, goes with that same thinking around housing, that we can build our way out of the crisis. The best way that we can address the rising cost of housing is to build more without asking what we're building or who we're building for. And for me, I think that I would like to see, instead of measures that open the door to developers and sort of open the floodgates to development in our neighborhoods. I'd rather see targeted policies that empower working families who live in and own their homes to kind of lead that development. So instead of saying, instead of making it easier for people to build 2 to 3 ADUs, we could ask, well, we already have 120,000 units that are or that have the option of building an ADU, but we've only actually seen 1,500 built since 2015. The reason is that local families can't afford to do it. So I would like to see an ADU grant program. If you live in your home, you might be able to access HHFDC funds to build your ohana unit for your family if you put a deed restriction on it, guaranteeing permanent affordability or saying that it will only be rented or sold to local residents. Those kinds of things, I think, take a ground-up approach and respect the character of our neighborhoods and our sense of community, because we do want to solve our housing crisis, but we want to make sure that the additional units we add to the market are for our families.
For the sake of time, I want to move to next topic. I know, okay, if it's really important, we can come back to it.
I think it's a really poorly rushed bill. It sets really different standards for Oahu in particular. It's a bill that had 2 hearings. And if you look at the voting record, over 20 representatives voted against it. One of the things that I want to do is create an exemption for Oahu in that bill until it can be better thought out.
James, we'll stay on the topic since it sounds like everyone wants to say something.
I just want to point out, I serve on the Kaimukī Neighborhood Board, and this issue came to us, and we voted unanimously on a resolution opposing the bill, SB 3202, and we did so for Councilman Tommy Waters' office because they were holding a special hearing about it because they had their concerns. Because again, touching on the idea of the character of the community, when you allow this type of development to go on, you're changing the character of the community. When you have all these families who've been there for multiple generations, they start seeing these dramatic changes, everything from the monster homes to the homeless moving in to the more crime. It's like a shock. I think that in the long run, we do have to address the housing issue, but I do think that the state has plenty of land. And I believe it was former Governor Neil Abercrombie. He had proposed donating state land and covering like infrastructure costs to help build the infrastructure out so developers can build more affordable housing. And I think that would be a good approach. Yeah.
Anyone else want to add?
Yeah, I would love to add in. I think this is an issue that I really care about. I took graduate courses at UH for urban planning, and this is something we kind of talked about, and it carried over to when I was working at Ways and Means because I read the testimony on this bill, and everyone was against it. City and county was against it, the neighborhood boards, like James mentioned, and it's just something that would destroy the fabric of our community in many ways. And not only that is when you look at it, the sewer and water isn't even capable of taking that kind of pressure right now. We don't have the infrastructure to hold up on it. So, my proposal is we have to start comprehensive planning. The neighborhood boards, the city and county, the state, they have to work together. They come together for 5-10 year plans. We can't keep being developer driven. That's just what I think about it.
All right, I'm going to challenge you guys to be fast with these answers. Let's see if we can get through some of the viewer questions, and then if you can, if you don't feel like you have to jump in for every single one, just because I know people are waiting for their questions to be answered. This one's talking about public education system. Tina's asking, do you have any ideas on how we can improve Hawaii's public education system?
Yeah, I think public education starts with our teachers. Teachers are the foundation of our education system. 14.5%, we give a 14.5% raise to our teachers in 2023, and I think that's a good start. But we can't stop there. So I propose we have Department of Education land in our district, and it's underutilized. And what I think we should do is we should help our teachers out, subsidize their housing. We have faculty housing at UH. I say we take that model. We take UH's model, and we put it in our district. And it's not only going to help our districts; it's going to help the surrounding districts. And studies have shown that when you help your teachers out, when they get a good pay, the students perform better. It's very evident, and we want to keep our local teachers here, teachers that can make a career, that can feel like, oh, this is a long-time career. I'm safe. I'm secure.
Anyone else want to add on education? I know this is a hot topic.
Well, I think a big part of it is, you know, we've had a lot of deferred maintenance issues when it comes to schools over the last few years, whether it's adding new things like trying to make sure there's air conditioning in our classrooms, or even just fixing things that have leaks or broken things. You know, and that's across the board. You know, there's a whole bunch of places. James knows the library that the neighborhood board is at has this tube running through the bathroom from I don't know what, but out into a drain. You know, improving the conditions for our students is going to be really important. They can learn things better there. But the other thing that I want to do is create new programs that help our younger kids find that pathway to the good job that they should be looking forward to.
Mm-hmm. Tina, I'll let you jump in, and then we're going to move on, but I will start with both of you for the next question.
Thank you. I'm a very proud public school graduate, so this question is really important to me. I think that at the heart of our schools are our students and our teachers, and we have not treated our teachers like the professionals that they are. 60,000 students every year are educated by a teacher who is not a Hawaii qualified teacher. We have 1,000 emergency hires and long-term subs. We have treated our teaching professionals, our educators, as babysitters. We haven't paid them what they deserve. We haven't supported what they need to do the work that is so important to our community. And so I would really like to see us fully fund our public education system, increase wages for teachers. Housing support is really important too, but the question of recruitment and retention is about more than just that. So we made some progress on, salary compression, but we need to pay our teachers more. We need to lower their classroom loads, and we need to make sure that students have a close relationship with their educators, that they aren't shoved in with 35 students to a classroom. Mm-hmm. And our public schools they're the key to our future, It is about connecting students with jobs, but it's also about creating lifelong learners who care about this place and feel responsible to take care of it.
John and James, we'll move to this half. We've got a couple of questions on the same topic, so I'm going to read them off first. I'll read each of them so that our viewers know that these questions are getting asked, and then you guys can address. Kathy from Kaimukī says, bullying in the House and Senate, how will they keep their integrity and not succumb to that? Steve from Kaka'ako says, it's pretty obvious that a certain group of longtime politicians have a lot of control over what happens at the legislature. If you are elected, how will you make any inroads at the Capitol as a freshman representative? And then on the same topic of being a freshman representative, Eric is asking, if you get elected, how would you stand up to the entrenched leadership at the Capitol that can't seem to solve the problems that hold Hawaii back?
Yeah, those are all really good questions and complex, but I guess I would just break it down and say that if you want to change the way things are operating currently within the legislature, you have to change the rules. You have to change things like the Sunshine Law. You have to change the unilateral power that a committee chair has. And kind of touching on what John said earlier, you have to look at, again, the elections and campaign financing, because a lot of these entrenched politicians, they're kind of beholden to special interests and the lobbyists, because those are the ones who donate to their campaigns so they can win re-election. But I think internally the rules need to be changed, and we need a stronger ethics and overwatch of the process itself.
John, for you, I know it's not easy when you're, it's a new job and there's so many things that you want to address.
Right. It would be extremely difficult to go against leadership, but I'm prepared to do it. I believe there are good legislators that will understand the macro policies of getting money out of politics, the big money. The average citizen for this seat, not the average, but the voter can contribute up to $2,000. A company can give its 100 employees money, $2,000 each. How can we compete as a citizen against that? But there will be a time where Hawaii elects the right-minded politicians to fill those seats. And instead of having just one ice cube in a warm soda, it'll be pouring a glass full of ice cubes and will change the climate for the people. Right now it's stacked against the people, but I will not succumb to pressure. My entire career has been built on fighting the powers, the large corporations, and representing the people. I have a track record of success in this area.
I'm going to take a pause from the serious questions because I think our viewers want to get to know each of you on a personal level. I think they want to know who you are as a human. So we've got a couple of fun questions. We will come back before the end of the show to the pressing issues. Brad is asking, we've heard a lot about the issues. Thanks for all that you do for participating. What do each of you do to relax? James, you want to start?
That, well, to relax, play with my son, obviously. Hiking, but I guess my biggest thing would be video games. I'm a gamer, so PC gaming specifically.
Fun, connecting with the younger generation.
Yeah.
John, how about you?
My girls and I and my wife will go to the beach, whether it's to surf, swim, or to fish. That's where we find our relaxation, at the ocean.
I love it.
Same, I'm a surfer. I haven't been able to get in the water much, but surfing is how I relax. And I would also say connecting with my community. I come from a background of community organizing, and the joy is in the struggle. Like working with the people you care about on the issues you care about is really fulfilling.
I'm sure not as much time for all of you with campaigning. Kevin?
Well, I just kind of like to relax. I do a lot of stuff throughout the day, and one of the things that I really enjoy is sitting down and watching old kung fu and Western movies with my grandpa.
Oh, I love it. George, how about you?
Oh, I love the beach. Yeah, before campaigning, I used to go every day, but I love the beach, and I volunteer over at Flow Wrestling Academy, and all my kids are on the mainland right now at Nationals in Idaho, and I want to shout them out. Good luck, and I know you guys will do great.
All right, one more fun question. We're going to go rapid fire, and then I'm going to get to the last serious question. For fun, viewers, one viewer emailed in, where is your favorite place to eat in the district? George, we'll start with you.
Oh, there's so many good places.
Unless someone else has one on the top of your mind, jump in.
Yeah. I like the little homey places. I like to go to Coffee Talk quite a bit. Just like a nice part in the morning, get a nice tea, and just center myself before the day starts, and then get going. So I really like that place.
I've been going to Rainbow Drive-In forever. Slush floats and loco mocos, and I have actually gone there twice in the last 2 days because
Can't go wrong.
yeah, you need energy to walk.
Mine's is Gyoza Kubota. It's kind of newer, but the gyoza there is so good. The only place on the island that has gyoza on par with my mom's.
Oh, okay. We'll have to check that one out.
We like to get dim sum or pho after church.
From where?
Dim sum, there's a place on, it's called Kumki, it's on Kapiolani. I can't remember the name right now, but, and then pho is wherever we'll, Pho Hung Lan has been a favorite of our family for a very long time.
My favorite pho place is in Kaimukī, so there you go. James, what about you?
Well, I have to say, I don't really eat out much. because my fiance is a really good cook. So I'm privileged to have that at home. But if I have to eat out, honestly, Taco Bell. It's right there in the district, and I love Taco Bell.
You're supposed to pick a local place.
I've got to be honest. He said favorite place to eat.
Okay. You're an honest man. I love it. I think we just have a couple minutes. So I'm going to let everyone 30, 45 seconds. What makes you different from the other candidates here tonight? You know, a lot of you, it was a lot of similar topics that are very important to each of you. Obviously, they're important to all of us here in Hawaii. But let's just go around, and I want to just quickly hear from each of you about what makes you different from the other candidates.
Yeah, so what makes me different, I would say, is my background and experience and my vision for Hawaii. It's more of a long-term vision, looking at each issue as like an onion. There's multiple things going on around each issue. Take homelessness, mental illness, drug addiction, can't afford rent, things like that. And for me, I like to sit down and pick all those apart and see what we can do for each tangent to move forward to a solution that can help everybody. Yeah, I would argue I have more of a long-term vision. Not looking for the re-election. I'm not looking for short-term band-aids, which is what we keep getting. I'm looking for a long-term, 10, 20-year solution.
John?
I'm the only candidate that's been living consecutively 22 years since 2002 in our district. I'm the only candidate that's 56, in my 50s. I think everyone else is in their 30s. I'm the only candidate that's married. I've been married for 25 years. Only candidate to raise 2 children in our district. My daughters went to Waikiki Elementary and Kāhala Elementary. And yeah.
Tina?
For me, I think it's the diversity of my expertise. I have legislative experience. I ran the office for Representative Amy Peruso for 3 years. And I took a very active role in shaping our policy package, our legislative package, particularly around education, local agriculture, and housing. I also have policy expertise. I dedicated my graduate studies to understanding why our state housing policies are not serving working people. But the thing that sets me apart, I think, the most is my background as a community organizer. Over and above my professional experience, I have a demonstrated track record of working with community. I was a founding member of Oahu Water Protectors. We fought to shut down Red Hill, and I'm a member of the Honolulu Tenants Union. Most recently, we worked to try to prevent the eviction of 130 families in Mo'ili'ili who were being displaced by a housing development called Ku'ile Place.
Oh, I think, James kind of hit it right on the head. It's all of our backgrounds that sets us apart from each other. Mine is that I was born in the district, that I've spent the last 12 years working with legislation. I spent 7 years in Rep. Nishimoto's office when he was the chair for higher education, the vice chair of finance, the chair for judiciary, and when he started with Grandinetti. I also went to law school and passed the bar, and so after I did that, I moved over to the mayor's office, and I've been there for the last 5 years, and I focus on everything that has to do with the state, or all the state legislation that deals with the operation of the city departments, every single one. And so when you look at the community and you see a lot of the issues that are being complained about, they're city things, whether it's speeding, crime, homelessness. It's stuff that the city can address. A lot of people complain about the trees and the leaves falling, the moped noise. All that stuff is generally falls under city control. Facilities at parks, things like that. And I have a broad depth of knowledge for that kind of thing. And I'm the one that helps all the departments look at things and drafted bills that get introduced as part of the city and county package. So that's the kind of stuff that I bring to the table. I think I'm gonna, if I can get in, my hope is that to just hit the ground running and see what we can do immediately.
George, for you, last one.
Right.
What sets you apart from the rest of the table here?
I'm dedicated to serving the community. I've knocked over 5,000 doors in the community. And, just like, everyone else mentioned, diverse background. you know, I have all these skills that I've learned, hardworking, teamwork. I've learned these from lifelong athletics, and they translate to life. And along with, you know, mental health counseling and working in the Hawaii National Guard, these skills with working in the state ledge, they all come together to make who I am now. And I think, you know, that's what sets me apart, is my diverse experience in different fields.
And just because we started with George, I'm gonna end with James, just because you happen to be sitting close on my right. Why should people get out there and vote? Or vote from home, since it's a lot of you know, mail-in ballots?
Yeah, I think people need to vote because they need to participate. Because if you look at the current state of the state, people aren't happy. And we have a low voter turnout, which means that incumbents continuously get reelected because their base is the main voting bloc. I think people need to get motivated to vote. They need to look at their wallets. They need to look at their paychecks and where their tax money is going when they drive over 1,000 potholes on the way to work. That should be motivation to look at the ballot, look at the candidates, and see where they stand on topics.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. I think just personally, I really loved the 2 fun questions. Thank you to those viewers who broke up the serious but important topics. It was nice to kind of just hear a little bit about each of your personalities and what you do for fun. We really appreciate it. And of course, thank you all for participating and watching tonight. We want to thank our guests here in studio, the Democratic candidates for State House District 20, George Hooker, Kevan Wong, Tina Grandinetti, John Choi, and James Logue. Thank you again for joining us in studio. A reminder, Insights is off next week for 4th of July. We will return on July 11th with 2 races on the upcoming ballot. And first, we will talk to the Republican candidates for House District 45 and then the Democratic hopefuls for State House District 37. Please join us then. I'm Lauren Day for Insights on PBS Hawaii. Have a great night.
Local broadcasts of Insights on PBS Hawaii are made possible by the support of viewers like you. Mahalo.